emergency episode under further review here. Big news broke today. I'm sure everybody saw it by now, but Dante Moore is coming back and he's returning to Oregon. Dante Moore, who probably would have been the number 2 quarterback in this year's draft, has decided that he wants to return and give it another run at Oregon. And that's massive news. That's probably the biggest portal pickup without it actually getting the term portal under it, because Oregon, if Moore does go to the NFL, now you're with Dylan Raiola, who I think there's mixed reviews in this podcast room right now about what Raiola is capable of next season at least. But I think we all believe that he can develop into a solid quarterback. But Dante Moore, the ceiling's just so high on him. I think that's what everybody was going based off of, is what he can potentially turn into in the NFL if he sat behind a veteran quarterback or if he continued to get reps in college. He decided the latter. He wants to get more reps in college, and more power to him. That schedule's pretty favorable outside of Ohio State next season. He's going to have a lot of his weapons back. It's looking promising for Oregon. But Kev, I'll go over to you first because you're the Oregon fan in this room. What's your thoughts on Dante Moore returning? Did you think that he was going to return at first?
At first it was up in the air just because I do think with this weaker of the quarterback classes, he could have been like, oh, let me get the money, but he decided not to, which I do think it's better for him because I think he does need the reps in like live action reps in the college setting in order to further his game. And I do think when you're out there reading the defenses and getting the reps against actual opponents and on the practice field, I feel like he'll be more ready for the NFL next season when he's coming out. And I do think it was the better decision for him. And I think it also, with all the weapons that he's getting back, I know the only one that I saw was leaving right now is Sadiq, which, I mean, he's a monster, but I know they were getting a couple tight ends and with recruiting and possibly the transfer, but I know their wide receivers are coming back. They're going to have Moore. They're going to have Stewart. They're going to have all the guys that filled in for those guys. So that all the players that got reps while they were out. So it's just more experience and more chemistry with them. So I feel like he could have a lot better season next year than he did this year.
Look out for one name, Kev, because you talked about some tight ends coming in. Andrew Olish. Last year, he was actually originally committed to Michigan. Last second, before signing day, he decided to flip to James Franklin and Penn State.
Yeah, I saw him, yeah.
He didn't get any playing time last year, or not much playing time, but he decided to, at the end of the season, jump into the transfer portal, and he went to Oregon recently. And he was the number 1 tight end in the recruiting class last year, and he was a 5-star recruit, I believe. So you're getting the real deal in Andrew Olish. And once he gets playing time, I know this is a Dante Moore episode, but once Olish gets some experience, he's going to be an absolute beast for Oregon.
Also, let's not discredit, he's got a Dante Moore throwing him passes now, who, I mean, this has such a big ripple effect across not only the 2026 NFL draft, it has a ripple effect across the 2026, 2027 college football season, as well as the 2027 draft. Like, this is a huge thing. I think I just want to add, as a Jet fan, I'm happy he's going back because I think we can all agree he wasn't ready for the NFL. But I personally feel, and I know that Kevin has faced this today from other people, I personally feel that Dante Moore going back to school, he's probably QB1 next year. Assuming he continues to, if he took big steps this year in his first full starting year, and I think we all expect him to be able to take another step. What is that next step? I mean, we could be talking about a monster here. And I know there are people out there that don't want to hear it because of what he did this year, but I got to be honest, Oregon's probably got to be one of the national championship favorites because of what they have coming back, what they've developed this year. And on top of that, I mean, Dante Moore, for me, right now, looking at it, would probably be QB1 for me next year in the draft. And there's a real chance the Jets are looking at him again next year. So this is crazy.
I do think I like it as a Jets fan too, because it's less of a chance for us to mess him up than like hinders abilities. And because the Jets are notorious for not developing a quarterback. So
that's literally what we're best at, is not developing a quarterback.
So I feel like I think he can develop his skills and everything better this year in college. And then, I mean,
live reps are always going to be better than practice reps. I'm a firm believer in that.
Me and Freck talk about it all the time, even Steve too, how probably looking at a new head coach next year. So, I mean, for the Jets.
Yeah, I mean, and to be fair, I think that had Dante Moore come out this year, I think we all know he would have went 2. I think we all agree consensus wise he would have went 2. And I don't believe in pre-draft trades because they're hard to predict. So I'm just going to assume if it would have been the Jets taking him at 2 rather than people saying, oh no, we traded to Cleveland or whatever. I don't think Dante Moore would never been able to sit like we wanted him to because Glenn at some point will realize or be told or acknowledge that he's coaching for his job. And I don't know what veteran the Jets could bring in to develop behind, to have or buy time to develop Dante Moore. There's a lot of names out there, but at the end of the day, eventually Moore would have seen the field. And if we took him at 2 and he fell flat on his face, it just would have been a recipe that would have spiraled. You got a new coaching staff coming in. Do they want to coach Dante Moore? I just think it's an unhealthy situation, but I don't think that Dante Moore made this decision to avoid the Jets. I think he's well aware that there's a chance he could get drafted by them next year as well.
Yeah,
we got 3 first-round picks next year.
And, there's a chance the Jets now turn their attention to Ty Simpson, or maybe we find out they're going to trade for somebody and they don't want to take a quarterback. But, this kind of changed the landscape for a bunch of teams. Because you got a team like, not only just the Jets where this changed because they're number 2, but let's just say the Jets do take an interest in Ty Simpson now. Now, what do the Rams do? Because it seems like they want to get somebody to develop behind Matt Stafford. The Browns seem like I want to remove them from the equation because it seems like they like Shador for, whatever. It's okay. What do the Cardinals do? Because it seems like they're done with Kyler. But if it's only Simpson, what do you do now? I think this got interesting in a different way.
I don't think they want Brissett to be their future. Sorry to jump in there, but
no, I mean, what is Brissett? 33? He's older? I mean, how much of a future could you get?
Yeah, he had a good season this year, but how consistent is it going to be moving forward? And can you really build a team around Jacoby Brissett? Probably not at this point. I think he's been a journeyman for a reason. But the story of Dante Moore, so had a very good season. I think during the regular season, he stepped up in the games that he was supposed to step up in. The USC game was huge for him. It was instrumental. I think it got the conversation going for the NFL because when Oregon was finally in the playoff, that's when the rumors started popping up about would he be entering the NFL draft. If he has a very good playoff, then there's a good chance that he will enter. The only solidified guy is Fernando Mendoza, so that this might be his chance to crack that top 5 as a pick. So there was a lot of momentum, and then major media names were starting to say, I think he is starting to lean towards the NFL. Ultimately, this is the decision that people talked about all season. They said that Mendoza was the sure thing. Moore had the ceiling. And I think a lot of people were under the belief outside of, there hardly being any quarterbacks in this draft this year that he should go back to college and continue to develop. And that was the thought all the way up until the start of the playoffs. So I think he was thinking, sitting there and pondering what it would be like to join next year or going to the 2026 NFL draft. I'm sure he made his phone calls. I'm sure he got some feedback about where he would be selected. But let's, like Mike said, I'm pretty sure he was going 2nd overall. So it wasn't draft position that made him go back to college. I truly believe he wants to go back to Oregon, win with Oregon, and also continue to develop under Dan Lanning and co. So I don't see why you'd be deterred from the New York Jets. It's a new coaching staff this year. I know it was ugly with Fields, but I mean, Fields is Fields. Has he ever been a solid passer in the NFL? He hasn't been. He's been pretty much a glorified running back. So you can't really go based off that. And I'm sure if they did select Dante Moore, they would probably bring in coaching to surround him, to develop him that isn't on the coaching staff already. So I also don't buy into the fact that, what people are trying to spread those false lies that Dante Moore didn't go to the NFL because of the New York Jets. I think he truly has a connection with Oregon. He likes being there, and he thinks that this is his best shot at longevity as a football player.
Yeah, I also think that, going back to, all year it came out, his parents want him to stay in school. He wants to get whatever, that whole report all came out up until the playoff. And I do think that had Dante Moore had a strong game against Indiana, maybe they didn't win, or let's just say they did beat Indiana and he put up big numbers, because I think for him, the only way it made sense for him 100% without question to come out was this if he was that 1st overall pick. And there was the chance. If he beats Indiana or plays a really strong game against Indiana, you might jockey that position. And, if you're going to be offered first overall, there's no reason to go back, right? In this situation, I think Dante Moore looked at the landscape as he should have of one, and he said it. I want to get better. I want to be a better leader. I want to process things better. He said it all on ESPN today, and I think he also looked at the landscape and I know you'll get an argument from a lot of people here, but based off team composition and we can throw statistically and track record, how is he not QB1 or QB2 coming into next year? I'm being honest. Who can we put definitively ahead of him as a quarterback next year? Not talking about the draft right now. Let's remove we're a long ways away from that. But just coming into, college football next year, who can you put ahead of him definitively? I'm going to be honest with you. You'll get arguments from a bunch of people, but none of them are really going to make sense because none of them went as far as he did.
Based off the reasons that people gave for him entering this year's draft, I think you have to automatically put him at number 1 next year because
I would think so.
It wasn't 100%, the season that he had that blew you away. I think it's always been the potential of Dante Moore and what he can turn into, and that he's a gifted individual at the quarterback position. And now that he's coming back with a year of starting under his belt, that's opening the door for an even bigger season, a season where he threw for over 3,500 yards and 30 touchdown passes, which is a really hard thing to do in college football. Just think what another year is going to do for him. But also, we saw what going back to college can also do to quarterbacks. And, thinking back, what we knew in the spring of 2025 when we were getting hyped up about this quarterback class for 2026, now it's a lot easier to look back and be like, all right, maybe the writing was on the wall and we just didn't realize it. We were kind of being oblivious to that. But was Cade Klubnik ever going to be the quarterback that Dante Moore is turning into? Was Drew Aller ever going to turn into the quarterback? Was Nussmeier ever going to turn into this? I think now that we know what type of quarterbacks they are, it's very easy to say, yeah, we overhyped them a lot. I think for the class next year, though, I don't know, man. If Dante Moore continues to progress, if Arch Manning continues to do what he did in the second half of the season, and now he has weapons around him from the transfer portal, he just brought in the top receiver, the 2 best running backs in the transfer portal. He has legit weapons around him, which is not something he had all season this year because Texas lost a lot of their guys from the semifinal matchup against Ohio State last year. And then if Julian's saying he can enter ideally, I know we're sitting here saying, there's a good chance maybe he'll stick around at Ohio State and continue playing.
Well, we didn't get into that conversation yet, but
yeah, but Saint still has Jeremiah Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Ennis is a really good receiver. He's going to have guys. I know Max Clare just entered the draft, but Bo Jackson out of the backfield, he's a very good receiving back. Saint's still going to be one of the best quarterbacks in college football next season. So say he continues to progress himself, which it's hard to do off of what was his regular season, over 80% completion percentage?
Yeah.
Something unheard of. That's hard to.
He had a very great year, but you said it before, the big thing for improvement, with him is pressure. How does he handle the pressure? Because when he got pressured against Indiana, he faltered.
Or
not Indiana. Well, Indiana pressured him that game, he faltered, and then Miami pressured him, and again he faltered. For him, and I mean this for a guy like Sainz a true pocket passer. He's never going to blow you away athletically. Steve pointed this out. Not the strongest arm. At least we haven't seen it. If it is, but he knows where to go with the ball. He's quick with it. He's got a great release. But if he could learn, and I think he will, but if he could learn to handle pressure and navigate the pocket a little bit better, the sky. I don't know if he's got the arm talent per se that a Dante Moore does, but Sain's gonna be one hell of a player if he figures that out. And then for Moore, it's kind of the same thing, right? It was the pressure that got to him. Those 2 guys, that's something that you can get better at, especially at this level. You can get better at with live reps and game reps. Trying to figure that in the NFL is just not it, But next year's class I hate saying this because this year we said going into last year, next year's class is gonna be great because you have Drew Aller, Cade Klubnik, Arch Manning, Lenora Sellers, all these guys, and literally all of them fell on their face. Let's not be. Arch Manning had a great second half of the season where he figured things out, but his first half was atrocious, and he figured out. But next year's class, and I think Arch Manning takes that next step as well. I think next year's class could be special. But the one thing I want to say, when me and Kevin were talking, Steve walked away real quick. Me and Kevin were talking about that following class where potentially you can get Sayan goes back to school, Carr goes back to school, Underwood's available for the draft. He becomes what people think he could be. I think Messermaker's probably more likely for that class. I mean, we could be talking about like the next two classes if everything goes right as like the two best. I think obviously that's not likely. I think most likely someone's going to falter somewhere. It happens all the time, but it could be special over the next couple of years. And, you know, I like the list that Kevin was reading. I don't remember who put it out, but you mentioned also guys for next year like Hoover, Sorsby, Levitt. Like you got a real mixed bag of guys there. And Dante Moore could end up being
2 years from now. Malik Washington, Deuce Knight.
So that's the class I'm saying that could be even more special.
From California.
I didn't even think about Malik Washington, but you know that class, like I said, is more likely to have guys like Sayan. You're more likely to have a guy like Carr. You're more likely to have a guy like Messermaker, Underwood, Malik Washington, who I've been big on. I know that he really slowed down hard. What's the kid from Cal? I can't say his name, and I'm not going to pretend I can say it. But he had all that hype, and he would be available in that class. We could really be looking at something special. And there's going to be guys that step up that we don't even know about. For instance, Steve next year made a good point. Darian Mensah from Duke. Statistically, I think actually he's pretty much a top 5 across the board this year. And next year, I know he legitimately carries that Duke team. And I know that they don't have a lot of NFL talent, but that dude is an NFL talent. I don't know if he's a first rounder, but if you put him on any of these big schools, he probably is. But yeah,
1,000 yards. That's so difficult.
With nobody. With nobody.
Yeah, that's wild. But Dante Moore, I think with like, you hit the nail on the head, that the pressure that he saw during the college football playoff, yeah, some of the things were out of his hands, but you know, some of the things were mistakes that fell on his shoulder as well. And ultimately, he's going to need to clean that up if he wants to take the next step as a quarterback. And when you get to the college level where you're one of the best quarterbacks in college, like what is the next step? So I think starting to establish what the goals are for Dante Moore is really important going into this offseason, because it's hard to beat what he just did this season stat-wise, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, you could limit turnovers a little bit more, but I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, there's been first round picks that have gone with much worse stats, just being honest.
And also, I mean, I know I will vouch for Moore during this whole season. How many wide receivers were healthy the whole time?
Not many. He carried when, you know, there are portions of the season where he carried.
Yeah, like
I mean, but the big thing is, it seems like he's only got one issue. At least for me, he's only got one issue, and it's just pressure. You know, in terms of how he faces it. Yeah. And I said to you during the playoff, even though you had your phone with no notifications, because that's what we do. You know, he doesn't navigate the pocket well when he sees pressure. You know, but I feel like that's something that, one, again, we can't remove the fact that he's a young quarterback making his first starts. I know he had some starts at UCLA, but he's making his first major starts. Like, I think these are things that can be cleaned up relatively quickly. I think that trying to clean them up on an NFL bench is much harder than trying to clean them up in college live film. And let's just say he takes a step back next year. He can always go back again. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, he's 20 years old. He's going to be 21 for next season.
So I don't want to compare this to a Matt Leinart situation. I know that that's going to be the biggest, where he was going to be the first overall pick, went back, chased the national championship, ended up being the 11th pick. You know, I it's very easy to see that parallel, but in this situation, I genuinely think that it would have done more harm than good for him to come out. Truthfully.
Yeah, absolutely. And like we talk about a guy like Julian saying first year starting had over 80% completion, but like he has clear things he needs to work on. We watched it in the game, the happy feet, like when the pressure's coming, he looks like a little like jackrabbit back there bouncing. He like doesn't know what to do with the ball.
And he's also not very athletic. I want to put that out there. That boy does not have any wiggle.
But like Dante Moore, I think the mechanics are there. He's like really a smooth thrower.
Actually, yeah.
And it's decision-making, like Mike's been saying, but I think the game starts to slow down as you get more reps. So that's a big reason why he's coming back next year, because now he's familiar with it. There's going to be a lot of confidence coming in. But I think what they should be shooting for, all these quarterbacks that are preparing for the 2027 draft, they should be shooting for where Fernando Mendoza is at right now, where he's making those back shoulder throws, releasing it before the receivers even break their routes, and putting it like right where they can only catch it. Like that should be what they're aspiring to be. I forget who said this, I was listening to either ESPN or a podcast, and they were saying it's so impressive like what Mendoza's doing, because he's just reading the defense every single play. It's almost like he has their playbook. So like when you get to that level, I think you're prepared for the NFL. I don't think Moore was at that point where, I don't think he wasn't seeing the whole field, because if you look back at the Indiana game, there were a few open receivers downfield that he just completely missed. I don't think he was 100% in contact with his receivers, or there wasn't that connection in that game. So, that tells me that he's not as prepared as Mendoza, who, Mendoza had a year of starting at California, and then this was
He's also much older, and he's obviously what is Mendoza 23? I mean, he's much older than Moore too. I mean,
21 or 22 at least.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how anybody could be unhappy about this. I know, I do see people online, obviously, he's trying to avoid the Jets. Jets fans are still, staying down, whatever. Like, as a Jet fan, I'm not unhappy about this, because I know, as a logical, realistic fan, that one quarterback wasn't fixing all the issues we have. Yeah, it's a big piece, but this team needs more than that. And this probably now forces the front office to look a little bit deeper than just, I'm going to throw a quarterback back there and develop him. And two, I mean, it doesn't rule out the Jets taking quarterback. I know Kevin doesn't want to hear this, but, Ty Simpson's going to get a massive rub because of this. And I wouldn't be shocked to see another quarterback get it. I don't know who it would be, but there's going to be other quarterback, a few others that are going to rise now, because it's just so depleted. There's only one guy going, that is viewed as this big prospect. And even then, Mendoza's not a perfect prospect either. So this has ripple effects, because now Moore goes back, and now guys but they will rise because of the need at the position. I'm just really interested to see how that plays out and who that is. Obviously, Ty Simpson's going to be one, but who's going to be the next? Is it going to be a Beck? Is he going to get that rub, who we've said, has looked really good? Does Cade Klubnik or Garrett Nussmeier or Drew Aller, which, by the way, again, Todd McShay, we love you here. But throwing your support behind Drew Aller now, brother, please. Oh my God. Like every day it's a new, Todd McShay loves a new quarterback. I love the guy to death, but it's like, holy cow, dude. Anyway, so yeah, I'm interested to see who gets the rub here. I don't know if you guys have an opinion on that. Obviously, it's definitely Ty Simpson, but other guys are going to bounce up because of it.
I mean, I do think Chambliss will get a jump, maybe Beck.
Well, yeah, he provided his own rub.
Yeah.
One thing I want to say a little bit real quick about Mendoza. Sorry, Kev, if I cut in there.
Oh, you're good.
The thing with Mendoza, I think in the middle of the season, I tried to push the narrative that, like, even he struggles with pressure at times. I don't know if I'm starting to backtrack on that. I don't know if I realized what Mendoza was doing in those moments. There's no gimmicks to Mendoza's game.
He's straightforward.
It's not going to be flashy. He's going to come out and he's going to do what he's supposed to do. I guarantee you, I haven't heard anything on this, but I guarantee you, if you ask Signetti, who's the guy that shows up the earliest, who leaves the latest, I bet it's Mendoza every day. But I'm actually looking at notes right now, and I remember this game because this was one of the closest games Indiana had this season outside of the Penn State game, the Iowa game earlier in the season. Mendoza was getting hit left and right. That was probably one of the worst offensive line games for Indiana this season. Iowa's no slouch on defense every year, but Mendoza, even while getting hit, he was making passes that were moving the chains. And that's so important, keeping your offense out there, winning the field position game. Maybe it's not going to lead to a touchdown every drive, but it's going to get you points. And Mendoza had that figured out since the beginning of the season. In those tight games, he was able to hold his composure, but also in games like, I keep going back to the Illinois game, like when they're just beating the brakes off teams, like, he's just in full command and he can do no wrong. And we've seen that in the college football playoff. Dante Moore showed that, like, against smaller schools to start the season. I was hoping to see it continue throughout Big Ten play. I really liked the USC game. That really made me a fan of Dante Moore when he played that USC game. And, he had full control of that game. So if Dante Moore can get to, Dante Moore's the better dual threat athlete, I think, right, than Mendoza?
I don't know. Moore is definitely probably physically more athletic, but he don't know how to use it. Mendoza, who I don't think is ever going to blaze anybody in a 40 or anything like that. He just sees it a little bit better, sees it a little more clear, uses it a little bit better. But I would assume if they had a foot race, I'd like to think that Dante Moore would win. But by no means is Mendoza Josh Allen or Drake May by any means out there. But one thing I want to bring up about Mendoza that I think separates him specifically from Dante Moore is when Dante Moore would turn the ball over, it kind of brought like a black cloud for a while. I'm sure Kevin would agree with that, where he'd turn the ball over and I don't want to say things would spiral out of control, but they kind of would, like especially in the Indiana game, like it spiraled when he turned the ball over. Obviously it was the first play of the game and he did try and get it back, and to a point he did, but it was too late. Mendoza, when he had turnovers, like specifically I want to go to the Penn State game where he didn't have a great game against Penn State. Like it wasn't pretty, but the interception that he threw never got him down. You know what I mean? Like he just came back, and that's the one thing I'd like to say about Mendoza is he fights and he battles and he doesn't let turnovers affect him, whereas a lot of guys do. And the big thing with Mendoza is in terms of if you wanted me to give a knock on him, and I've loved Mendoza since the beginning of the year. Steve knows that, and I'm sure I annoyed the hell out of him early on with it. Is sometimes I feel like he stares down the pressure up the middle, which as a quarterback typically is not. It's not conducive, when you're worried about the pressure coming up the middle. As the year went on, it got much better, and I've actually stood behind that. This is a down year for quarterbacks. I still love Mendoza, but I'm actually starting to change my opinion on that. A little bit now. I think Mendoza stacks up pretty well against some of the other guys. I always said that up until recently, I've always said he was a lesser prospect than a lot of these other guys that went first overall.
Sorry to jump in again, but also with Moore, being that it was his first season, and something that Kevin pointed out is he was missing most of his big targets this season. A lot of injuries through those receivers. There was a lot of quick pass, quick routes in his game this year, or in the offensive scheme this year. If you look back at the Penn State game when they won in overtime, he wasn't really looking 20 yards plus downfield. I don't even think he was looking 15 yards plus downfield in that game. It was really, those quick routes, and he was hitting his receivers right away, but was in control in that game. Was pretty poised in that game in a hostile territory. Penn State's always a difficult, place to play at. But I think that's another thing that we're going to see from Dante Moore next season is they will expand the playbook a little more, because even in the playoff, I wasn't really blown away by the choice of play calling from this Oregon offense. I think
Dan Lanning looked real weird. I know that he's a defensive coach, but I agree with that.
But you can kind of add to that I know we were saying that the offense coordinator was going to Kentucky, right? Stein, yeah. So I mean, we were kind of saying it how he might have been juggling too much, and maybe he just didn't have the greatest game plan for.
But I mean, wouldn't, just for perspective, I feel like if I'm Stein here, I would, any coordinator going, I'd want to put my best foot forward. I have a chance to win a ring and really stamp myself as some gifted play caller, and I don't feel like he did that. But then you go to Ole Miss, and I get it, Weiss wasn't taking a head coaching job, but he was taking a job at LSU. He was needed to recruit there. And, Weiss coached for Ole Miss, there was no tomorrow. This was it. He loved what he was doing, So I don't know how much of that is there, but I guess I agree. His mind's 100 places, but, he kind of owed it to those kids to put a better game plan together. And I know I've been killing Cristobal, most of the playoff for his play calling, but that Oregon play calling that game was downright atrocious.
Yeah, and I know they were down so many running backs, but it was just
it was ugly. It was over before it started.
That's probably the reason for that one fumble is just inexperience when the running back ran into Moore's throw.
Yeah.
I would chalk it up as that.
Which I see people blaming Moore for that fumble. I'm just asking you guys' perspective. In what rationale can you put that on Moore?
You really can't.
But I've seen multiple analysts say oh, he's got to be more aware. Aware of what?
He's running an RPO where the running back's behind him.
He's literally doing what his job is supposed to be done. I don't know, what could he have been more aware of?
You're expecting.
I'm pretty sure that's what Mensch said on the Todd McShay podcast. It was he has to be more aware, but of what? What do you be?
Was it that fumble, or was it the second one when he took a blindside hit?
No, he was talking about the throw.
A lot of people were talking about that.
And I'm I don't know what he could have done. I'm just asking. Maybe I just don't know enough. But what could he have done differently there?
Yeah, you can't expect your running back to run into you when you're trying to release the ball quickly. And also, what were they inside the 10, inside the 5 or something?
Yeah. And that's when they were only down. I think
that long.
They were down set. They were either down 1 or 2 touchdowns at that point.
Yeah,
but
you want to put the pick six on him. You want to put the other fumble on him.
Yeah.
Those are acceptable completely. Yeah, obviously those are on him. But like, dude, like we don't like. I know that we tend to pile on when things go wrong. Like, you got to be realistic. Like, we've got to be realistic. But I hope that pisses more off, and I'm sure it does. And I hope it feeds him. And I hope next year he comes out and he throws for 50 damn touchdowns, just to prove a point.
To be fair, that interception was really bad, that first one.
Oh, it was hideous. It was one of the worst picks I've seen.
Yeah, it was bad.
And I think when you saw that, I'm not an Oregon fan, but Kevin is. I think when you saw that pick, you probably realized this was not going to go well.
I felt defeated.
Yeah. It took him a while to snap out of it, and he did eventually, but it was just never he
did come back that second drive and played very well. That second drive was a good drive. But it's just gave Indiana the momentum that it never.
Yeah, if you give them any inch, they're going to take it, and that's exactly what they did. I also hate that we break it, and I know he's had a couple games where we're kind of like, dude, like even the JMU game, I was like, what are we doing? You know, like there were points in that game where I was like that, and the Texas Tech game, and I was kind of like, meh, like what are you doing here? But this game was atrocious. We'll agree. The Indiana game was a really, really, really categorically bad game. But I hate to break a kid down over one game, but. You know what? It probably benefited him for that to happen. I think that was probably – I doubt he'll say that's why he went back to school. But I think we can all agree that played a huge factor because if he comes out and plays well against Indiana and we're arguing, oh, should it be Moore or should it be Mendoza? He's probably coming out.
Yeah,
I think this could be a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, it had a chance of him being – if he played the same without the turnovers – against Mendoza, then I feel like the Raiders could have been like, well.
Oh, you could see a team. The biggest thing that they were saying was that Mendoza has a very high floor, but the ceiling's not as high. And then they were saying that Moore has this sky high ceiling, but how low is that floor? And if you fall in love with what he could become, I think you take him first overall. And I think there was a real possibility that could happen had this not happened. I just want to say that I love Mendoza. It's disappointing that he's going to be a Raider. One of my best friends is a Raider fan, and he kind of wears it into me a little bit. My brother is as well. And I've told them, like, you guys got to be careful. He's not the prospect that a Joe Burrow is. You know, he's not the prospect even that a Jared Goff was or a Trevor Lawrence. And I just want to say that I think that gap is much closer than it was. I mean, you look at the statistical year he's had. You look what he's doing. While he's never going to wow you athletically, the dude's a hell of a passer, man. Like Steve was saying, those back shoulder throws are disgusting. Disgusting.
Yeah.
I think that, I don't know if he's ever going to be a top 5 NFL quarterback, but I think that he's very reasonably going to be a top 10 guy. And you take the first overall pick, sign anybody up for that. I think it's a good thing. And what was that?
As long as the Raiders don't break him.
Oh, well, listen, that's my one thing that I keep telling them is I'm like, well, who's he throwing passes to? Jake Beck and Trey Tucker? Those are your guys. That's what we're doing.
Yeah. Brock Bowers when he's healthy. And
Brock Bowers when he's healthy, yeah, that's the big thing. I mean, last year was a rough year. If they could learn, I don't know if the Raiders knew this. I don't know if they knew this, but they had a running back that they drafted, Janty. I don't know if they were aware of that. But it's going to come down to coaching staff.
He averaged
Yeah, but he had 1,300 total yards. 1,100 came after contact. Like, what?
Yeah, that's wild.
It's sickening. And that's the one thing I'm going to say about Mendoza that is very scary. And if you're a Raiders fan, you should be scared of, is that offensive line's not getting fixed in one offseason. It's not. And we've seen Mendoza is a guy that's going to deliver when he gets hit. But what happens when those hits really start adding up and they start taking their toll on him? Like I said, he's not the most athletically gifted guy. What are you going to do?
And plus, you're coming from Indiana where you were protected very well.
Yeah. But I mean, even what Steve said, when the Iowa game, the Penn State game, he was getting hit and he was taking those hits. And I give him credit. He's tough as nails. He was taking those hits and delivering. But those were just 2 games.
Yeah.
He's going to get teed off on for 17 games.
And
I'm curious where the Jets slander came from, because the Jets just had an offensive line that's made every start this season, and they're young, right? If you keep Breece Hall at running back, if you have Garrett Wilson get healthy again, why wouldn't you want to be on that offense?
I think the Jets were the better location if you're a quarterback. Where the slander comes from is we've never developed a quarterback. Let me change that. So the last quarterback the Jets truly developed was Kenny O'Brien in the 80s, and we're a long ways away from that. And some people would say that Ken O'Brien wasn't the greatest quarterback, but he wasn't bad. But we haven't. That's where it comes from, is we haven't been able to do it. We screwed up Sanchez. We screwed up. Well, actually, I want to go a little. Pennington, we didn't screw up. Pennington was developed. Pennington's issue was the rotator cuffs couldn't throw the football anymore. That was their problem there. But, we screwed up Sanchez. We screwed up Darnold. We screwed up Wilson. And I'm going to say it. Like, I know that Fields was screwed up beforehand, but then we banked on Fields, who did nothing. You know what I mean? Like, they consistently make the wrong decision. And so naturally that's where the Jet slander comes from. But if you remove the team names and everything, and I showed you roster A and roster B, roster A being the Raiders, roster B being the Jets, and I showed you, what you potentially could be, we'll remove cap space from it because both teams are like top of the league in cap space. But we'll just, what the Jets picks are coming up and the Raiders picks coming up, you're picking roster B every day. You're always going to go with the Jets as a roster there. But again, the slander, it's warranted because the Jets haven't gotten it right in a long time, It's just that comes down from making the wrong pick. So I actually, as a Jets fan, I feel a little bit better today. One, I feel good for Dante Moore because Dante Moore made the best decision for Dante Moore. And two, I feel good as a Jets fan because I know that we are not a quarterback away from competing. We're not. Like, I'd love to say we are, but we're not. Yeah. And now the Jets are forced to go deeper. And now I think it's a good conversation. Who do the Jets look at?
Yeah, I said this to Freck and just as a lone text, I feel like it kind of forces the Jets into, because how deep this defensive class is, we're going to, like, a lot of their top 4 picks that are in the 2 rounds are going to go defense.
Yeah, I mean, how do you sit at number 2 and not take Arvell Reese? I'm just, Steve, you're an unbiased opinion here, so I'd love to hear it. But, like, if you're sitting at 2, like, how do you not take Arvell Reese?
You have to. When the Giants were sitting at 2, I was like, I really hope they don't trade back, because I wanted Arvell Reese so bad.
Yeah, I mean, the way I'm looking at it is there's 2 options, and I think it's probably the same 2 options that you would have thought when the Giants were holding the second pick, is if Jordan Tyson's medicals all check out and everything looks good and all that, I could see Jordan Tyson being the pick there. But, I mean, I don't know how you don't pick Arvell Reese. He would literally be one of the best chess pieces in the NFL. And I've told you how I would use him. I wouldn't make him a pass rusher. My man's going to play all over the front 7.
Yeah, he's going to be the best player out of this draft when it all is said and done. I believe that. But my last question for you guys, let's wrap it up with this. What did you like about Dante Moore other than his ceiling that would have made you okay with drafting him in that second slot? And my second part of this question is, with such a high ceiling, what player can he get to? Like, what is a comparable quarterback in the league right now that he can get to?
So I'll let Kevin lead with this because this is his guy, and then I will come in afterwards. But I'm interested to hear Kevin's take on this.
I mean, he does. I was weary about taking him at 2 just because of how many, like, just being able to develop him. I don't think we were going to be able to. And for his comparison, I think he could be like how Russell Wilson was on the Seahawks.
I feel like it's kind of low. I love Russell. I loved Russell Wilson. He was my guy on the Seahawks, but like that, I feel like that's not where I thought you were going to go with this.
Well, I mean,
he wasn't a bad quarterback. Russell Wilson on the Seahawks was like a top 5 guy, but
I know.
I thought you were going to go somewhere else with this.
I'm not going to shoot that high, but I do like him. I feel like he can compare to that. I feel like he could put up the numbers that Russell Wilson did on the Seahawks, which he blew. He threw for a lot of yards, a lot of touchdowns. He won a championship, and I mean, I'm hoping he does win a championship in the NFL one day, whether it's with the Jets or with somebody else.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go, like, my biggest thing with Moore, and I haven't been. He was second best in this class until he wasn't, obviously. My biggest thing that I liked about him, obviously, was the ceiling, like Steve said, but a little bit deeper than that. I mean, you just watch him throw the football, and everything's effortless. The arm angles, the touch. He's an effortless thrower, and mechanic-wise, he's sound. And that kind of gets overlooked. I mean, how many guys go to the NFL, and they got to rework their mechanics? And it's actually shocking how often it happens. And with him, it wasn't like that. He's just a natural thrower of a football, and it looks – I'll tell you, it looks pretty. When he throws a football, it's pretty. He could rack up yards quick because of that. With even in the championship game, some of those like sidearm flick throws and stuff were insane. Like, I mean, he gets around guys and things like that. So I'm going to say his throwing motion, his mechanics as a quarterback are what appealed to me most. In terms of comparison, I thought Kevin was going to go a lot deeper. I'm not saying Russell Wilson was a top 5 guy with the Seahawks most of those years, but I'm going to go a little different here. My first inclination, I want to say, is like the way he throws the football with the arm angles and the slot and stuff like that. naturally makes me think of Patrick Mahomes, but I don't think that's who he'd become. I think ceiling-wise, I think he's more in the realm of a Joe Burrow. I'm not saying he's going to be Joe Burrow, but in terms of just being a natural thrower of the football, being able to, drop down, and if he could, and I think he's got the athleticism of a Joe Burrow. He just can't navigate the pocket anywhere near like he can. But I think you can learn that. So I could see that being a very good comparison. The other one that I want to say that it's not really, fancy is I'm gonna tell you right now, he reminds me a lot of CJ Stroud, like rookie season CJ Stroud. Yeah. Which, to be fair, if you gave me 10 years or, let's just say 15 years of what CJ Stroud did his rookie year and not what he did after that, even though this year he kind of had a little bit of bounce back, but not great, I would sign up for that. But CJ Stroud and him seem like very similar. And I'm interested because Steve lit up when I said that. So I'm interested to hear what he has to say as well. So I'm going to say on the high ceiling, it's Burrow. On the floor, you're probably looking at CJ Stroud.
I was thinking Stroud at first because of his rookie season, and he showed like glimpses of maybe returning this season, but then he would have a really bad game to follow up. The Texans have such a strong defense, maybe one of the best in the league. I have two names in mind, and one might be a curveball. Two, just listen to me on this one. The first one I had in mind, so we're talking a high ceiling. Somebody who's been hovering around tier 1, tier 2 of the quarterback talk throughout his whole NFL career. And maybe he doesn't have the same pathway because, when he was in college, he wasn't what Dante Moore is. But Dak Prescott, I could see him turning into
not a bad one
type, throw for 4,500 yards a year, be able to
just hover between that 10 and 15 spot for his career. That's a good one. I like that.
My second one, this is going to throw you off, Mike, because
here we go.
We've gotten into some heated arguments about this quarterback starting to come around a little bit on it. Caleb Williams. I could see him being Caleb Williams.
I got to hear this one a little bit further.
Mine is the jump passes, but I mean Caleb Williams, when the game is on the line, the Bears have shown that they can come back nonstop. Like now that Caleb Williams in year 2 has confidence and has targets around him and a good coach in place, Caleb Williams is starting to turn into the guy that we thought he was supposed to be. But just from like mechanics wise and arm strength and stuff like that, Caleb Williams can sit up there with the best of them in the league. Would you say so?
I would. Yeah. I mean, that's in terms of arm talent, Caleb Williams is, for me, and I think for a lot of people in the league, is probably, some people would argue Patrick Mahomes, but Caleb Williams does stuff that Patrick Mahomes can't do. Like some of I sent you a clip earlier, but that's not why I sent to you of TikTok of like, they did it was Chase Daniels did a breakdown. And for those of you that don't remember, Chase Daniels was a great quarterback in Missouri and then was a backup for 58 years in the NFL and played behind some of the best quarterbacks. And he did a breakdown of like Caleb Williams' natural arm talent. Like he was with mile per hour going the opposite way, like 14 miles per hour and still unable to uncork a throw and did like velocity. It was insane. Yeah, I think that's really high praise. I'm going to be honest with you. That's really high praise. I like where you're going with it though, but that's some really high praise because that's like there's like godly arm talent, and that's kind of where Caleb Williams is at. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, okay, yeah, I like that one. It's not out of left field. I like that one. I think that's a really hard bar to set though, because that dude's gifted.
Yeah, his arm talent is very, very good.
Yeah.
The only knock on really Williams is his accuracy, which, well, I mean, I wouldn't say his completion percentage, which
he throws the ball away a lot, which Steve is right, and he points it out a lot. Is he misses a lot of throws, but the big thing is he misses them and doesn't turn them over. If Dante Moore does that, I think he's got a successful NFL career. I think we can agree there. Even with the CJ Stroud comparison, if you're CJ Stroud, I mean, I think we agree CJ Stroud's going to have an NFL career. I don't know how long, but 10 years of CJ Stroud probably is I don't want to say middle tier, but maybe we'll get years where he really takes that jump up and some years where he's down, But yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be really interesting. I think we're going to have this conversation again next year around draft time because I feel in my heart the conversation is going to be much different.
Yeah.
And that could either be a really big negative or a really big positive. Because if he takes that next step forward, I mean, we could be talking about a prospect like we've never seen before, but if he takes a step back, conversation changes quite a bit. But I really hope that we can retain this conversation. Really, really, really want to have this one again. Yeah. Probably multiple points next year because I think Dante Moore is going to be the focal point for just about any quarterback evaluator going, for next year. I like that. I think that was really good. I like everybody's comparisons except Kevin's. Russell Wilson? Are you kidding? Yeah. Like he don't even play like Russell Wilson.
Right. He's got the arm strength like him.
I guess he don't even look like Russell Wilson. Like there's nothing he does reminds me of Steve. Be honest with me.
He
Does
looks
do
like Joe
anything
Burrow.
that reminds you of Russell Wilson.
No, sorry, Kev, but
All
he
right.
doesn't throw the moon ball like Russell Wilson does.
Oh my
Well,
Lord! I heard that
no one
Dante
throws
Moore
the
could turn a
moon ball.
double play like Russell Wilson. Anyway, so yeah, I'm interested to see how this plays out. I think draft season just got a lot more interesting because now there's not an obvious number 2 out there or somebody that's going to be at that 2 picks. I would love to. I think the other evaluation, which I think we're going to have to dedicate time to, is going to be Ty Simpson. I really mean that. We're going to probably have to dedicate an episode to Ty Simpson now.
Oh yeah,
because his draft evaluation just changed dramatically. He's going to see a rub and a big one at that because he's all that's left.
Once the championship game's over, and I'm going to throw this on air out there, what I want to start doing is maybe doing a few teams per episode in the first round and like just going over who we think they should pick and why. So I think that'll be really fun if we do it that way.
And we're not wishy-washy like Todd McShay. We love you, brother, but we're not wishy-washy like you. We stick to our guns here.
Yeah. Yeah. Obviously things
Please
change.
come on our podcast.
Yeah, I would love that, McShay. And obviously things will change over the months as we hear more reports, as the combine comes around, as the pro days come around.
Oh, let's just make a prediction real quick. Is Mendoza thrown at the combine? Yes or no?
No shot.
Is he testing? Is he testing at the combine?
I don't.
What do you mean testing? Is he getting his
Anything?
height
I don't think he's doing anything.
Yes,
at the
he's getting
combine.
his height
I don't think he's testing at all at the combine. He's going to do medicals and interviews and
No,
get the hell out.
Yeah, exactly. He's doing his height and weight. That's it.
I mean, when's the last time a quarterback of his stature did the full gambit at the combine? It's been years.
I can't even tell
It's
you.
been a long time.
I do wonder. I wonder if he would have done it if Moore was in this draft, because for a while people were like, who's going to be 1, who's going to be 2. So
I got to be honest. I don't know much about I like Mendoza because he's an interesting cat. I don't think that dude cares where he got drafted. He's just happy to play.
yeah,
Is Simpson going to do it?
I think Simpson has no choice but to he's going to have to test the combine. I think Simpson's going to have to test. Drew Aller 100% is going to have to test the combine. He's going to have to run I think Aller won't. He won't run the 4. Oh, that's true. Can he? I don't know. How bad is he? He's going to have to work out. I mean, he has no choice, right? I mean,
I don't know. I mean,
but I will say the one thing about Aller that I'm seeing is I'm seeing a rise in the mock drafts. That man's making it into the 3rd and 4th rounds right now. Well, I think McShay might be looking at mock drafts before he writes his own and saying, hey, am I missing something? Yeah, I think that probably just about all the other quarterbacks are going to test the combine with the exception of Mendoza. He'll come in, do medicals and the interviews, and there's no reason for him to do anything. Actually, does he even have to do interviews? We know where he's going. So what is he going to do? Come and meet with the Jets? For what reason?
It's a waste of an interview because don't you only get a certain specific amount of interviews?
Yeah, nobody's wasting an interview on Mendoza. And the Raiders shouldn't be. The Raiders are going to they might as well just come out and say, yeah, we're taking Fernando Mendoza and get it over with.
Yeah.
And save a lot of time. I miss those days when they used to do that. But yeah, I'm interested. Ty Simpson's going to be a really interesting prospect. Now, I know there's a lot of people that are high on him, and there's some people that are really down on him. And I think our podcast kind of falls in the middle. So we'll try and do our best to give an unbiased take. And it'll be interesting to see who else rises. I think, Chambliss is going to benefit from this. I do think Carson Beck's going to see some benefit. And I'd be interested to see where, Nussmeier has been floating around in that 2nd, 3rd mock, round draft. Is he going to get a rub and get bounced up a little bit? I'm interested. This draft season for quarterbacks I know a lot of people are probably down on it now. I'm not. I think it's going to be super cool. This is going to be exciting.
It's going to be very random.
Yep. And Jet fans, I wouldn't be completely out on it. Like a lot of Jets fans are saying, like Kevin's here, he's done. I'm drafting defense. That 16 pick, if Ty Simpson's there's a chance he goes. Like it or not.
I don't think he's dropping to 16. I think he's getting picked at 12 or 13.
I think because of this, he's probably going to go up. Because of what just took place, he's going to rise in the process.
Yeah.
It's just
if he doesn't go at he's going top 13. I think that's his floor.
I could really see the Cardinals taking him. I don't know.
Yeah, but it's funny because pre Moore going back, I think we even said he's a 2nd round pick. So I don't know. There's a lot of people that are saying he was a 2nd round pick.
I mean, I've been saying that he's going to the Rams for a while.
If he's there, I think Steve's right. I mean, I think he's going to see a big rub because of this.
I understand. I like I said, 13's his floor.
And those teams that need a quarterback that don't take one, what are they going to do? That's the next big thing.
There's no shot that mock draft that had him falling to the Steelers, I think it was correct.
Yeah.
That was like in the 20s, 21 or something.
It was like 21.
Yeah, I've been trying to keep up with the mock drafts today because the post Dante Moore mock drafts, and I'll tell you he's all over the place.
Like 26 with the Rams too. I'm like, I don't think he's fallen that far either.
I mean, the
Like,
highest that I've
Rams
seen him
won,
so
they're-
far, I've only looked at 4 or 5, but the highest I've seen him in updated mocks was 16 to us. Or the Jets, not us. We don't condone any of the shit the Jets do.
It's like the Bears or something.
Yeah, no, we don't condone their activities. We actually are very against what they do. We think they need Jesus.
Why don't we wrap it up there? There's going to be plenty of time to talk about all the quarterbacks and all the players that are in the NFL draft. I'm sure we'll go pretty in-depth in the upcoming months.
You know, actually, because this wouldn't be a podcast before you call it without me doing it, so I got to say it. Where do you think Morton's getting drafted out of Texas Tech? Wait,
Canadian League, I already said it.
they don't even want him. He's going to go play Japanese
I was about
X-football,
to say,
whatever they
he's
call
going
it
to
there.
the Japanese league.
The Brazilian Football League.
Update that LinkedIn, buddy. You're done with football.
What is it? I think it's what's the car rental place that hires all the former NCAA athletes? Is that Hertz?
I think so, yeah.
Enterprise, whatever it is.
Where did Jake Fromm go? He went to an insurance company, I think.
Jake Fromm, yeah, but I mean, he hung around in the NFL for a little while.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, Georgia.
I think he made a start, didn't he? He started for the Raiders or something, didn't he? Or the Bills? Somebody.
I think he might have got a starter too. Yeah.
Well, I can tell you who's not getting a starter too.
Not Morin. Definitely not Morin. There's our Big 12 talk for this week. But yeah, thanks for listening. It was a surprise episode, I would say. We knew the Dante Moore decision was coming regardless today, but we just didn't know where he was leaning.
Actually, if you listen to our podcast that happened the night before on this, we surprisingly found out the deadline was today. So please watch that to learn about this.
Absolutely. And that will also come out this week. So you're getting 2 episodes this week. But yeah, thanks for listening. Remember to follow along social media on YouTube. Subscribe. It's under further review, a simple search. But we'll catch you guys later in this week because we have that episode to put out. So see you soon.